now we have international affairs analyst Dr. Marek Laskowicz joining us live from London. Marek, glad to have you join us.
Thank you.
Good, wonderful. Well, Hamas says U.S. veto of the UN Security Council resolution proves its complicity in Israel war crimes against Palestinians in Gaza. This is the 6th time. Your thoughts?
Alas, there is indeed substance to the accusation, because the problem is that indeed the US, by vetoing this resolution for a 6th time, is showing that it is indeed supporting Israel's offensive. Therefore, it follows that unfortunately, with there no possibility of a ceasefire in sight, the USA, by fully backing Israel, the implication is of there being a grave humanitarian crisis happening right before our eyes in Gaza City.
Macron raised a very poignant, or made a very poignant point. But before I go to Macron, let's just stay on the U.S. Why would, I mean, that's the question. Why would U.S. block a UN Security Council security vote on ceasefire in Gaza when Witkoff was part of those who drafted the so-called ceasefire?
Yeah, the real problem at the end of the day is that it's quite unclear what President Donald Trump wants. On the one hand, there is this document by Tony Blair, which works on the previous idea of Gaza being put under some sort of international control and eventually under the PLA, which would eliminate the need for Hamas. On the other hand, he supports the Israel offensives, which are designed basically which will reduce Gaza City to rubble, and which may well be part of their ethnic cleansing program that they have proposed, and President Donald Trump in the past has supported, but appears to be distancing now. So our problem when we come to analyze it is, where stands Donald Trump? And the problem is, we just don't know.
Yeah, because you remember Trump talked about making a Gaza the Riviera of the Middle East, and then Smotrich talking about real estate dividing Gaza. It will be a bonanza. Now let me go to Macron. He raises a very poignant issue. The fact that West Bank has absolutely nothing to do with Hamas, and says it's both unfair and irresponsible what Israel is doing.
Well, basically, whilst many countries around the world would like to see a Palestinian state alongside an Israeli one, there are those in Israel on the far right which simply do not want this. It is part of the Zionist creed, if you like, that Israel must recover the full control of Israel. And having conquered it in 1967, they are now trying yet again to take it over. And the point about it is, it's got nothing to do with Gaza, because to be honest, it's quite unclear to what extent Gaza has anything to do with Gaza, because the Zionist, if you like, creed, their program, was to move forwards whether or not there is a justification in terms of a Hamas attack. Therefore, in that sense, the West Bank is simply part of this program. And this appears to have American support. The Secretary of State, when he visited there, gave some sort of comment which can be interpreted as not being against Israel annexing West Bank land. This being the case, there is an attempt to bury the idea of a second state solution, and therefore would go with the expulsion, ethnic cleansing theory. Unless, of course, for some reason, Israel is going to have a great many Palestinians in its frontier which are under its direct rule. There are incidentally such Palestinians, if one may call them that, already, because they are Israeli citizens who are Palestinians. And this is, of course, yet another possibility which is unclear. And therefore, what we must look at is to see where President Donald Trump stands, what Netanyahu wants to do with his two right-wing allies, is to carry on making the second state impossible. Please note, he said right from the start of his prime ministership, which is many years ago, there will be no Palestinian state on my watch, and this has happened. Hamas, if you like, is simply another chapter in his stalling or trying to forestall or trying to eliminate this possibility.
Marek, what's the short term, the long run implication, and the wider implication of what is happening in Gaza, especially with Israel's of ground offensive or incursion, if you like, and the ongoing killings? I mean, 65,000 plus killed in Gaza, and of course the famine.
Yeah, well, the implication is quite simple. They are going to move into Gaza, which will be heavily bombarded. There'll not only be many casualties, but much destruction, including, of course, of places like hospitals. And the goal, therefore, would be compatible with the idea of this ethnic cleansing. Whether it will actually succeed in forcing Hamas to disgorge its hostages alive is another matter. But I don't think this is of any interest to Netanyahu. He's not genuinely interested in hostages. His plan has been for years to, at very least, have a Zionist state as Israel with no Palestine. And he has actually been recently talking about a greater Israel, which incidentally stretches from the Nile to the Euphrates, which I think is going to be a little concern to Egypt and Lebanon and Iraq and Syria, who, after all, are countries which own this territory, but clearly Netanyahu has another vision. So what it boils down to is a huge humanitarian crisis right before our eyes.
All right, Dr. Marek, we'll leave it there. News just coming in. We'll leave it there for now. Thank you so much for your always interesting analysis.